Hold to order. Roll call, please.
Rupert.
Here.
Thompson is absent. Fergus.
Here.
Gustafson.
Here.
Hicks is absent. Says Fish. Paper.
Here.
Here. And we have a quorum. First item of discussion this morning is the billing policy for the water disconnect and delinquency. We'll call on our City Finance Director, Bill Sommer. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning. Thank you, Your Honor, and the City Council. We want to make a little bit of a change in one of our billing procedures. If you'll recall back, we talked, was it maybe a year ago? Before we were kind of getting to the winter season and when people would disconnect their water by request, that we should keep billing flat charges, things like stormwater, because even, a property is still generating stormwater, whether the water is turned on or not, or sewer is running down the drain. Same with tree management. So at that time, we kind of cleaned up that inconsistency, saying, we need to keep billing flats at that time, for when you disconnect your water per request, if you're going to go south or something. Well, we have our new utility billing person here, Kelsey Miller. She's doing a great job, and she's looking at cleaning up some inconsistencies that we have as well. And here's another one. When we disconnect water for delinquency payments, that account has always just been closed in the system until that account is reactivated. Well, you look at that the same way. Stormwater, tree management, those services are still being used. And then flat charges for the water and sewer system as well, because that residence is still connected up and has the access to those services because they're tied into the house or the residence. So we're looking at doing the same thing when we force the disconnect versus when someone requests the disconnect. So that's our request of you here today, is to forward that on to council and pass a resolution approving that, and that'll help to make us more consistent as well. Now, there may be some landlords, that are used to that account stopping completely when we disconnect for delinquencies, but I think it's more fair to keep some of those flat charges going. Did I miss anything with that? Okay.
So, Bill, question then, does that, in a typical case, would that get carried over to like the next, if it's a house, the next purchaser? Is it kind of like That's
a good point. So if it is a house and if we're shutting it off for delinquency, say, and then if it happens to get sold in that interim, all bills for utilities always stay with the property. Now, we always try to collect. We always continue to try to collect, like if it's a rental or something, whether it's in the tenant's name or the landlord's name, ultimately it always stays with the property. And that's in our city code, that those charges become a lien on the property. Again, we always try to collect those from the people that incur those charges, but those instances could happen where delinquent charges stay until a time of closing at a time of sale.
But it'd be hundreds of dollars, not thousands, right? I mean, we're talking...
Right. The other thing with when we're shutting off for delinquencies, typically this is a short period of time because it's a collection mechanism. So we finally get to the point where we have to shut that water off, and then we typically get a little more action on payment of the bills because, of course, people are still living there. They're still using garbage service at that time. So it's irregular when we have things off for an extended period of time. Right now, we may have a couple accounts that are off for a little bit longer, but typically off for maybe a few days, get things caught up, and then the accounts are turned back on. But to bring consistency, that's why.
I was going to say, just to make consistency over the accounts that are turned off. Okay, any questions for Bill or Kelsey? Someone like to make a motion, we bring this to the council?
Offer that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justin.
second.
Thanks, Caroline. Consent agenda?
Yeah.
Okay with everyone? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you, Bill. Next up is Public Improvement 9771, which is the portion of the landfill that's been closed, and we'll call on our city engineer, Brian Ybarra. Good morning, Brian.
Thank you. Good morning, Your Honor, and members of this council.
There's a screen that we're, for the project we're referring to. Back in June, Houston Engineering presented a PowerPoint presentation in regards to the SW 184.5 closed landfill. Since then, this was, if you recall, this was a direction of the MPCA to update this plan. We provided a work plan for the PCA, which they have approved. In general, what is approved and directed by the MPCA is requiring 2 additional nested monitoring wells to be installed in private property. If you refer to the map on the screen right there, it shows these nested wells proposed at FF22 and FF23, generally located due west and northwest of the closed landfill site. These well installations will be done by Trout Wells, a subcontractor, and then testing will be done by Test America, all being administered by Houston Engineering. As mentioned, these wells are located on private property. We have met with the property owner. They have agreed to allow the city to install these wells. We have talked about ingress-egress easement to these wells, and those are some things we could have to continue those negotiations with the homeowner. So at this time, I'm requesting to accept Houston Engineering's professional services agreement in the amount of $72,011, and then authorize staff to initiate the ingress-egress negotiations with the property owner. These fees for Houston Engineering and the future pending ingress-egress agreements will be funded with the city's post-closure insurance fund through the PCA, and the PCA has approved funding for this project. So.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions for Brian? Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
I spoke with Brian briefly about this before we started, but when we saw the presentation earlier, that was the update from a 10-year plan. Is that the right way to look at it?
Oh, that's 10-year plus.
For a few months ago. The impression that I got was that things were changing somewhat, as we would expect things to change underground somewhat, but that it was really slow moving, that it wasn't anything dangerous, that we weren't in any sort of a threat. There wasn't really much to worry about. And so I guess I question why we would even feel any urgency to do this. And just want to raise the question as to, just because Minnesota Pollution Control Agency might say, we want this, is it something that's so urgent that we really need to act? What if we just wait a year or two? Is this something that we just really need to spend $72,000 on now? Or could we do this next year or at the next review period? I'd like a little more clarity on just why this is something that has to happen now.
Sure, Your Honor, Councilmember Fleming. Yeah, we started this update over a year ago, so it's been a continual process going through the work plan. We did the well sampling over the winter time, did the analyticals, and yes, determined, what the extents of the plume are and the natural attenuation of this plume, and it really has not changed. As far as what you're requesting, a delay in installing these wells, we can make that request to the PCA, but I don't recall that being part of the discussion thus far. So if it's the council's desires, I can certainly make that request.
But this is just a continuation of the plan that's been put in place, right? This is
Correct.
Not a new, when you gave your update, or just so I understand, because I think I understand what Scott's saying, but this is not something that all of a sudden we're spending an additional $72,000. This is part of the plan that's been put in place and has been executed.
Yes, that's part of the plan. In this particular area, we're looking at these wells. Like I mentioned over a year ago, we did some sampling of some existing wells in the area. You can kind of see on the screens. Those, did not have any indication. The reason, the intent for these wells, based on natural aquifer drainage going to the west and northwest, the locations make sense to me. It's just that there's no way to confirm exactly that the extent of this plume has not reached there. It's more of a redundant safety net feature for assurance.
Thank you, Brian. So with that, the recommendation would be to the council to accept the engineering report.
I'll offer that.
Thank you, Krista. Thank you, Tom. With that, further comments or questions? Scott, did you want to follow up?
Well, I don't have a problem accepting the report, but I'm still not sold on the reason for moving ahead with the proposal to spend the $72,000. So I think it's okay that we would know these things, but I don't know that, I guess what I'm asking is, if we accept the report, does that commit us to spending the money and doing this well installation? Can we accept the report without doing the well installation?
Now, for the action for you, at this point, what we're the requested action right now, if we don't, I would have to come back to the council and ask for a delay in this. I just want to note that the funds are from the post-closure self-assurance fund. Estimated about $3.1 million in that fund. In general, we make draws against this account just for our annual maintenance costs and everything that relatively does not even exceed the interest bore on this account. So, like I mentioned, it's not going directly against the levy to fund it. I just want to note that's coming out of post-closure fund that's been accumulated over years.
Which is part of the long-term plan, correct?
Yes.
Just going to explain those funds a little bit more. Those were put away through the years we operated the incinerator up at the RTC. Every month, part of the tipping fee up there went to financial assurance, so that went into this separate fund within the city that is controlled by the MPCA. And then also at the time of the closure of the old municipal landfill over there, I know then we funded that portion as well at that time. I mean, many years ago, but that's where those funds originated from. So as we went through and collected the tipping fees, I think $4 for every ton went over to this fund. And that was a requirement at that time of the state to put them away. So just FYI on that.
Okay, thanks.
Just an FYI.
Thanks, Brian. So
Your Honor, and I just want to more specifically answer Councilman Quambi's question. This action would spend the $72,000 because we're accepting the proposal to spend that. So to directly answer your question, yes, if you vote in favor of this, you're authorizing the expenditure of the $72,000.
And the motion is to bring this recommendation to the council for action on Monday night. So any last questions or comments on the motion? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Aye.
That motion carries. Item number 3 is Public Improvement 5344 Randolph Avenue, Freiburg to Springen. And again, we'll call on our city engineer, Brian Navarro.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just recently, city staff and interstate engineering, we conducted a site review visit along Randolph Avenue and portions of Freiburg. We discussed quite a few items, but we noted a few additional items that were not considered in initial scope of work. I have it listed here right now. I'll just go over briefly. We're going to look to do a few additional soil borings in Randolph just to verify some existing pavement deficiencies. The ped ramps located in Randolph Avenue are not ADA compliant. If people that know the area, there's one particular ped ramp about 150 feet east of the Fir and Randolph intersection. That's extremely difficult, and that's going to take a lot of design to try to find a little better idea how to achieve ADA compliance. We're potentially looking to add sidewalk along a portion of Randolph Avenue on the south side. More so, like I mentioned, a portion up to Burlington to help serve students and the pending aquatic facility, but most are over at this point for student movements. Where I'm also requesting to add additional street segments such as Cudboard from Cascade Street to Freiburg Avenue and Whitford Avenue from Cudboard to Summit. Both Cascade Street and Summit were resurfaced in 2016. So therefore, by adding those in conjunction with existing project, we have a lot of continuity in our pavement management. And we're also going to look at bike lane analysis too with this project. I just want to note we have had discussions already with the school district, and they are very amenable to a lot of these ideas. But we will be going back and having further discussions with them. So, like I mentioned, if acceptable, we'll start doing a little bit more feasibility with these ideas that we're referring to. I'd like noted, I'm looking to bid this project prior to the end of the year, but we would not be constructing this until school's out next spring. These costs are to be funded through the city's municipal state aid street construction allocations. So at this time, I'm requesting accept Interstate Engineering's professional services amendment for design and the amount of not to exceed $25,000. and authorization to increase the work scope by adding Cabora Avenue and Woodford Avenue to this project.
Thank you, Brian.
I'll offer that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Tom.
Second.
Thank you, Scott. Any further questions for Brian, clarifications? We'll put that on the consent agenda, Tom, that all right with you?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor of that motion to bring this to the council, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. One more for Brian, at least one more.
Yes, one more.
Public Improvement 5333 Union Avenue Pedestrian Improvement Project.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, we recently awarded this project to Central Specialties of Alexandria, Minnesota. The next step is to accept a professional services agreement for construction administration from Bolton Mink. They have offered estimated a fee not to exceed of $98,000, which includes the construction administration along with the state aid testing, which is required for projects such as this. I just want to note a little nuance to this project here. I have, the initial schedule was to start this project beginning right after Labor Day. I provided a note just received yesterday, actually this morning myself, from our consultant and also conversations from Central Specialties. But in general, they are requesting a delay of this project until spring of next year. And a lot of the concerns that they've noted on that memo, I've heard from a lot of other contractors as well. And if you read the local regional papers, you see City of Moorhead, City of Fargo is experiencing some of this very similar things. And part of the delay is really directly attributed to lack of materials for these projects. I have a few notes here that I've also heard from other contractors. I don't want to have too much detail, but epoxy paint, commonly used for pavement striping markings, that's very, very limited to a lot of contractors. Sanitary sewer structure castings, very limited long lead time for those. And in fact, the PVC pipe that was impacted just for the resin production back in, if you recall, back in the winter last year from Texas. Well, now Hurricane Ida has impacting that same industry right now. And that was, just got some notes from that too, from local contractors and suppliers. So I just want to note, this project doesn't require a huge amount of these limited materials. But given the tight schedule right now, and what this corridor means to the city as far as traffic and everything, it's a major corridor, as we all know. And we are very limited given the season too as well. If we have any material delays and everything, I think it's very risky. And I personally have a lot of discomfort with that. And I'm very amenable, and I'm kind of requesting, if it's okay with the council, to file a change order and to delay this project to starting right away in springtime and complete it by June 30th, excuse me, July 30th. But like I mentioned, there's just a lot of risk, and I think with all these material delays and what's going on. So I'm open up for discussion if the council would like to entertain the request by Central Specialties to allow a change order to delay the project to start construction in spring.
I don't have a copy of the sheet. That's fine. I just have a couple quick questions. So are we guaranteed prices as they are, the bids as they sit now, correct? And then the only thing I would say is, I don't know if we have an option, and I'm fine with it. I think that for such a major corridor, June and July, having construction during June and July is probably more bothersome than September, October, November. So in a perfect world, obviously fall is probably a better time than summer. But if it means we're going to have delays, I mean, you're the expert, and if that's your recommendation, I mean, I think it's that's what we should do, that's what we should do. But
And Your Honor, just the major concern with pushing the timeline into late fall is if we weren't able to get the project complete before hard freeze and snow,
Sure.
we're going to have a serious mess on Union Avenue with
sure.
major traffic, and snow removal is going to be a nightmare.
Again, in a perfect world, I think, September, October is better than June, July. But that being said, it's not a perfect world. And if you guys think that there's potential delays and we're going to end up having a mess in the winter, that's your recommendation. I think it is.
Would it be
it is what it is, right?
We could push the scheduling to that time of next year, knowing that all the materials are secured and the contracts in place, I
We
assume.
certainly could. We could look at doing something like that, looking forward. We do have the big federal improvement project, Mill Overlay and Union Avenue, and then across Lincoln. So that is part of the timing of already looking at the back. So if we're looking to have this type of construction in the fall, I'll see what I can do, and how that would fit. But I agree with your honor. But like I said, the risk with all these material delays, we have limited leg in the schedule as it is. It's just, I don't want to be, especially if we get winter time coming up more seasonal with decorative concrete associated with this. I just think there's a lot of risk with this right now.
Sure. And I don't want to, I take, you guys, I'm just making a general statement that, but it's going to be a nuisance for traffic regardless of what time of year it is. So just whatever the time is best, I think is the best time to get done. Scott?
One of the other things that would impact the timing of it for next summer would be the expectation that this riverfront structure is going to be finished yet this fall, and the idea that we'll begin to use that space next spring and summer. And so then what would end up being the entrance to that gets all tore up for the 2 months as we're starting to use something new, and it sure be nice if this was all done so that we'd be able to just start using it like we planned on using it. To accept this option to delay it wouldn't mean that they even said in their letter here that they'd continue to buy the materials and, work toward securing what they need. Should they be able to get the stuff and realize, we could still get this done, then what's to stop them from still doing it this fall? There wouldn't be any, this wouldn't preclude them from just going ahead if in the next 2 weeks they realize, we're going to have all the stuff, we can get it done, let's go for it. Or once we agree to this, then they can just shelve it till next year and wait. That's kind of a general question, but that's, I think that what they were suggesting to tie this in with the other work on northern part of Union and even pushing it beyond June and July next year, that might be a better option. And yet then I think they're going to be asking for more money and a change in the dollar signs of it, because then it's our request, not theirs. So there's give and take on both sides of this thing, I guess.
There certainly is. I just want to note that I just came yesterday, just from Hurricane Ida, with the resin for the poly PVC pipe. Right now, local suppliers and vendors, I've been told they're not even taking orders right now for a minimum of 2 weeks, just because the uncertainty right now, just with the market availability, is that extreme. So it's pretty unprecedented times when referred to as material delays.
The other thing I want to mention real quick is, we're exploring doing Stanton Avenue next year from Union right in this stretch to Broadway. We're also looking at Union all the way up to Fur. So I guess I'd pose the question, do we want one summer of extreme inconvenience, or do we want to stretch this over 2? It's another thing to contemplate, because if we try to rush this project and have a nightmare this fall, then we couple that with extra frustrations next year on these 2 other major projects in the same corridor, we're gonna have a lot of upset folks. So I mean, just something to contemplate as you're thinking through this. But
I would be in support of, allowing staff to work through. I mean, I think it makes complete sense to grant them their request. As far as the timing next year, I think that maybe could be worked out, and you probably could come back with a timeline on if it were to go into the fall, because we think that's better construction season. Maybe the price doesn't change, maybe it does, then we can make a decision on that. But, and I think coupling this with some other projects makes sense. I mean, it's going to be an inconvenience either way you do it. I'd rather have one inconvenience be done versus having multiple years of inconveniences. So I think we just lost staff to go back and, I think we accept their request to change the order this year and come back with what that would look like for next year. That'd be my recommendation.
And is that a motion then also to accept the recommendation in the professional service agreement from Bolton and Maine?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second it.
That's a second. And then any question, I guess we can have, that's the purpose of the committee of the whole, have some time to formulate questions, and we can discuss this Monday night and see if there's any further questions then. Is that acceptable to the council? Okay, all in favor of Justin's motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. We'll bring that to the council. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Next up is a walking, Guy Taylor's walking the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
It's an old country song for you folks that don't know.
So the request before you this morning is to purchase a Wilkins walking floor trailer. Currently, we haul soft goods, furniture and mattresses and the like from the landfill to Winter, North Dakota. Right now, we use a roll-up truck with two 30-yard containers on that truck. The Wilkins walking trailer would replace the two 30-yard containers, so more than doubling the capacity we're able to haul per load. And so we double the capacity, reduce our time on the road. We'll have more staff time back here in town working at the landfill. So the purchase price is $76,097. With taxes and a tire credit, it comes to a total of $89,973.11. And that amount will be over and above what was budgeted for 2021 for the equipment fund purchases. But we did not increase that last year due to the expected LGA funding that was potentially going to not happen, but that deduction never happened. So the increase to the equipment fund didn't happen either. So I'm just requesting that with this purchase, you allow me to go over budget in that equipment fund.
Thanks, Guy. Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
But as you said, we'll see continuing efficiencies from this due to increased productivity from the
Yeah,
workforce.
definitely fuel savings. The equipment that we'll use to haul this trailer, like in thermal states, it's sitting most of the year.
Yeah.
It's semi-tractors that we use for sludge hauling and snow removal. So it'll better utilize those two semi-tractors and we'll save on fuel and realize some labor back in town.
And what is a walking floor trailer, out of curiosity?
It's a semi-trailer, enclosed semi-trailer, and the floor is pneumatic walking floor, or hydraulic, I guess it is. And so the slats on the floor, they alternate between, every other slat moves, I guess. So it eventually walks everything back to the back of the trailer, and it dumps out the back.
That's pretty cool.
And we haul this. This is from our landfill to Winter.
Winter North,
Like the soft goods and stuff that's not taken to the county. Is that right? Like not the household waste.
Right, yeah, it's the mattresses and furniture and stuff.
Sure. Okay. All right. So any other questions, Guy? Someone like to make the motion? We bring this to the council on Monday night, Tuesday night. Sorry.
I will.
Thank you, Krista.
I'll second that. And then, just for some reason, the first picture I had in my mind was you moonwalking in the back of a trailer. I don't know where that came from. So,
We can demonstrate that when the truck.
I
is
look forward to seeing that. Can we put that in the motion?
All right. Thank you for that, Tom. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. That motion carries, and we'll bring that to the council on Monday night. I think we can put that on the consent agenda, Chris. Is that all right? Yeah, okay, thank you. Item number 6 is also Guy Taylor, and it's ordinance 13/8 series.
Thank you, Your Honor. A little over a year ago, we went through a whole codification process, and now in the ensuing months, we've learned that there's been some things that were missing in that whole process in the new code. So things that were missing and things that we just decided in working with the new code, we would like to see added into the code. So what you have before you in the packet is the changes that we are requesting to be made. And then one addition is on page 5, I think, of the packet. It's 90.24. It's the last piece in that section. It's requesting an allowance for staff to work outside of the noise restriction times. So for city staff to do work overnight hours on street projects or water main, sewer main issues like that.
Okay, thank you, Guy.
So if there's specific questions, we can address those either by email or at another meeting.
Yep.
But the first reading then, if you approve this morning, will be Monday night.
Yeah, so we'll just need a first reading of this Monday night. At that time, I think we can just maybe make a summary of what the changes are in the ordinance at that time. Someone like to just recommend that we bring this to the council for a first reading? Thank
I
you.
would love to.
Tom? Second?
Sure, I'll second
Thank
it.
you. Caroline, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries, and we'll bring that to the council on Tuesday night. Anything else to come before the council? Lynn, do you have any announcements?
Keep saying Tuesday, just a reminder.
Tuesday.
Tuesday is the next
It's Labor Day on Monday. Have a nice Labor Day, everyone, and we'll see you Tuesday night.